Awesome. So hi everyone, I am Julia Kotziamani. I've done a couple of meetups with Frollo before. Oh, more people joining. And I've just started on as Frollo's dating expert. So you're going to be seeing a little bit more of me over on the Instagram and in here. And I'm here to answer your questions and generally help you with all of your dating worries and woes. A little bit of background, I've been a love, sex and relationship coach for ages, and the last few years I've just been focused on working with single parents. It's mainly been mums, but I'm very excited to be working with some dads as well. So I'm just very excited about the whole thing. And so I thought I'd kick off with a kind of dating confidence workshop, because I know that starting out can be one of the hardest things, especially if we haven't dated for a while. And I mean, it's nerve-wracking for everybody. Dating at any stage in your life is nerve-wracking. If you don't do it often and you're not quite sure how to go about it, and it's just foreign and new. So yeah, let's start there, you know, the very basics. How do I feel confident before a date, during a date, and after a date? You have to bear with me a little bit. I'm actually 31 weeks pregnant, so I've got a rather large baby sat on the bottom of my lungs right now. So if I sound a little bit breathless, that's why. She's there digging into things, as I'm sure lots of you remember. So yeah, let's start, shall we? Because we've only got an hour and it's a very big topic and I'm not going to be able to cover everything, but I just thought, let's start with a really broad thing about how to reduce nerves before you go on a date, how to get the conversation flowing so it's not super awkward and strained, how to stop worrying about failure or, you know, things not going as you'd planned. And how to follow up as well, because that's really important. We've all been on dates which we thought were great, and then like somehow it's fizzled out, it's not turned into anything more. We haven't seen them again. So yeah, let's start there. So at the very beginning, before you've even gone on any dates at all, we have a process of getting ready, right? And this, believe it or not, can be the kind of make or break time in the evening, because I've done it, and I'm sure we've all done it, spent hours getting ready. You're really, really nervous. You're very excited to meet somebody. I'm just going to pop you all on mute, if that's all right. Sorry, I'm new to kind of hosting these things. We'll do like some Q&A stuff at the end if anyone's got any questions, but I thought I'd just present to you for a little bit and then we'll have a chat. So yeah, that bit beforehand, when you're really, really excited, you're going to meet somebody for the first time, especially if you've met online. This could be your first kind of encounter with them in the flesh. And that can be a time when we get very, very anxious. I know I used to suffer from this a lot. So it's very, very normal, but not very helpful. So to start, biggest tip, do not take too long to get ready. Now, if you're somebody who takes a long time to get ready all the time, then that's fine. But I would not deviate much from your ordinary routine for a date. Assuming you're not going anywhere black tie, you know, normally a first date, I would, you know, it would be something like a coffee, a drink, dinner, a movie, crazy golf, whatever it is that you're doing. You need to get ready as you kind of normally would, because in that process of taking a really long time and making like loads and loads of effort, you are building up the kind of the pressure around the date. You're putting in a lot of effort. You're spending that time kind of worrying about being perfect, looking perfect. And this can have like a lot of problems that comes with it. One, you know, you're going to get yourself anxious. And two, if you turn up like a million times more glam than you are normally, that can be it can be a bit strange when they then see you again another time and you're not anywhere near as glam. Hi to everyone who's just come in. Welcome. We're just talking about getting ready for a date and not putting too much emphasis or spending too much time on that part. Because by the time you've spent an hour getting every hair perfect and you've got the tube or the bus or you've got to wherever you're going, you're already super nervous if you've put this much effort in. So minimal. When I met my husband, I'd come straight from work and I'd actually got changed in a shopping center bathroom and just sort of put on, like, it's one of those like very outdated things, you know, all those articles they used to have in women's magazines being like day to night. It felt like one of the only times that that's actually been a reality for me. But I essentially just like put on a tiny bit more lipstick, changed into some jeans. That's it. Like, because at this stage, you know, I know that if I spend hours and hours and hours, I'll either be disappointed if the date goes wrong and I'm like, oh, what was all that for? Or I've just got myself so worked up. So don't take too long. You obviously want to feel good. I mean, don't feel crappy. Don't think, oh, I'm not looking my best. But you know, like, you want a good day during the day, that kind of thing. And another thing about kind of clothes, getting ready, wear something comfortable. I'm sure we've all done it. Like, you've squeezed into the Spanx, or you're wearing some shoes that are uncomfortable, or if you're a guy who doesn't normally wear shirts and ties and you've gone all out and put this on and you're just sort of feeling a little bit awkward and out of place, you want to be yourself, right? I mean, this is somebody that potentially you'll spend time with in a very casual situation as well as kind of more exciting ones. They need to see you, they need to see the real you if they're going to know if they want to date you. So something comfortable, and like, mainly for the women, a safety thing. If you're wearing 8-inch heels, you are limiting some of your ability to get away if you have to. I'm not saying that you will, but just in case, those things play in the back of your mind and can show up as some anxiety, and it can be subconscious, but just feeling like you're a bit sort of restricted or stuck in your clothes is a not a nice feeling. And when it comes to children, which is why we're all here, this is not just a generic dating confidence meetup, we all have kids. They can be a huge source of kind of anxiety if you are not totally 100% confident in how they're going to be. So I would advise not leaving them with a brand new babysitter that you don't know and you've just met online and you're feeling a bit nervous about. If you have a very high conflict ex, maybe that's not the best place to leave them if you're going on a date. Basically, you want to take stress away from the situation. So you don't want to be worried about who your kids are with, whether they're all right or not. So a trusted babysitter, another caregiver, or if you have a great relationship with a co-parent, those kind of things, great. You want to know that they are in safe hands and whatever happens, someone's got it, right? And that you're not going to be sitting there kind of semi-looking at the phone or just anxiously worrying about it. So this can take a little bit of time to build up if you are somebody who doesn't have a big support system. You know, maybe try out a new babysitter a few weeks in advance of dating. Just make sure that you are feeling very confident, or a friend, or somebody that you know just has this down so you don't have to think about it. And check in with yourself. Why are you so nervous? We get it, like, dating is a bit scary. It's a bit nerve-wracking, especially if you've kind of got excited and like this is someone you've been chatting to a little bit and you haven't been on a date for a while, or even maybe been interested in anyone for a while. But if you are feeling terrified, then listen to that, you know. I really don't think that it is a good idea to kind of push through. You might need to do some more work as to why you feel unsafe or what's going on. So listen to those nerves. A few butterflies of excitement is one thing, but if you're feeling genuine like anxiety, then maybe that's, you know, your gut instinct and you should listen to it. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. I know that we can kind of go, oh, well, we've organized something with someone, you know, like worst case scenario, blame the kids. But like, if you need to pull out last minute, that's going to be better than forcing yourself to go into a situation where everything's kind of screaming not to. And then you can take some time and be like, well, what was that about for me? What was going on there? And just be really kind to yourself while you're like getting ready beforehand. If you are somebody who practices mindfulness, then deep breathing, things like that. But essentially, I would put dates in and around your day as much as you can. I wouldn't kind of like set aside a whole day to get ready for a date and put all this pressure on it. I would just kind of meet somebody for a drink after work. If you can leave your kids with their usual childcare for an extra hour, that's going to be much better. It reduces that kind of pressure on this big moment, this big event. So in talking about that, let's kind of jump around the schedule a little bit, but it feels like a good time. Let's have a think about like what a date is and what it isn't, because we have a habit of like hyper romanticizing date culture. We've all watched American films where like it's this huge, like massive deal. It's essentially just meeting somebody to see if you want to meet them again. That's like the long and short of it. It's no more than that. It can simply be, we've had a drink, do I want another drink? That. It is not, is this the future husband or wife? It is not, will this person be a great co-parent with me? Even if those things are fully in what you're looking for in a relationship, a first date is not the place for this. A first date is simply, do I feel safe around this person? Do I like this conversation? Am I interested in them? Are they interesting to me? Do I think this is somebody I might like to touch? You know, these are the kind of very small questions, like, do they smell right? Is there something just kind of making me feel a bit ick? Like, do I just like this person in a friendly way? Those are the kind of questions, like, yeah, do I want to have another drink? Am I interested? It's not really the place for, yeah, do they meet every single criteria on my list? This is not you're not going to work that out in a first meeting. And if you try to, you are going to stress yourself out. You are going to be interrogating this person sat in front of you. And it's just going to load pressure upon pressure. A date is not a big deal. I usually recommend when people first start dating that they try and book in, you know, like 3 or 4 in the first month if they can, casually, just to get used to it, and to meet people quite early on when they've been talking. Specific, I'm kind of referring specifically to kind of online dating, because we've all been in a lockdown for a really long time, and let's face it, that's how most people are kind of meeting nowadays. And they're pretty low, they're low stakes. You know, you've had a bit of a text exchange. Hopefully it's not gone too far, but you've got a kind of sense of this person. Maybe you've had a phone call just to see if you like feel confident enough to go, and you need to meet them somewhere where you feel safe and that it's easy, public, pretty casual, you know, because what you're really deciding, and when you start doing this, when you start kind of taking all the other stuff out of the dating situation, it makes it so much easier to see if you like them. Really, really. I used to kind of plan like one big date every month, and I put so much pressure on it and get so excited about that date that by the time it got round, I couldn't even tell if I liked them or not. You know, it wasn't even about that anymore. It was suddenly about like, oh God, is this going well? Do they like me? Do I look okay? Do I come across okay? And I'm like super worried about like this kind of romanticized version of this event. Whereas essentially when you strip it down to, I don't know, we'll have a pint and see how that is. Or even more, like less so, I've had great breakfast dates. I know it sounds a bit random, but like they fit in around like school runs and work and whatever else. Whenever works for you, whenever is not going to stress you out. And, you know, it can be as short as an hour, half an hour, just to see if you want to see them again. You haven't invested much, they haven't invested much. If there's nothing there, there's nothing there. A date is really not, it's not an interview. You're not looking really for a life partner, even if that's kind of here, this is what I want. That's not what you're doing on a first date. You couldn't possibly do that on a first date unless you spent, I don't know, a month together, like non-stop. It's not a thing you can do. Obviously, if there are any glaring red flags, things that you're like, this is just a no, no, no for me, like one of my kind of core values here has been stamped on, then that's useful. You don't have to see them again. But it might be as small as, I just didn't really feel, I know people talk about it a lot, but I just didn't really feel a spark, you know? It's not a big deal. You're not there to be chosen. You're not really there to be choosing anything more than, do I want to see this person ever again? Like, and that, when you reduce it down to that, it's very, very easy to not stress out and not freak out, because there's really nothing invested in it. Let's have a little chat about sex, because that's a thing that can come up if a first date is a drink out in an evening and it turns into 2, 3. We have all kinds of kind of cultural and societal rules around sex, first dates. Do you kiss? Don't you kiss? Will it drive somebody away if they want something serious? It can put stress on you if you're sort of sitting there going, is he gonna, like, are they going to expect a thing, like something to happen here? Like, do I have to kiss this person? Is this a thing that happens at the end of a date? And the answer is, like, there really isn't a rule for this, and we need to give ourselves a break. Sometimes people sleep together on the first date or have a kiss, and sometimes they don't. And those relationships, the length of them, the seriousness of them, there's no bearing, basically. So you could, if you want to, sleep with someone on the first date, and that would have little to no effect on a long-term thing. You could also definitely not, you know, it's all about what feels right, comfortable. It feels like sometimes we attempt to manipulate the situation and other people using, you know, physical touch and intimacy. And that is either, if I hold out a bit, then they'll take me more seriously, or the opposite of that. Oh, I really want to please them, so I'm going to do something that I don't feel comfortable with. Essentially, the first date is about you and yourself, which is, do I like this person? Do I want to do anything here? Do I want to see them again? That's it. They're doing that for themselves. You can't really control that. Like, you can only control your side of it. And so, yeah, I would listen to yourself and read the situation. And if you feel comfortable and you want to go in for a bit of a kiss or more, yeah, great, go for it. If you don't, then really, really don't. There are no hard and fast rules on this. So yeah, that's kind of what I think a date ought to be and ought not to be. Essentially, you want to just feel safe and comfortable, and there is no pressure there. You've just met this person. If they don't fancy you, whatever. If you don't fancy them, similarly, you know, not a big deal. Nobody's wasted loads of time. It can be as simple as, do you want another drink? Do you know what? No, I'm all right, thanks. Leave. That's absolutely fine. You are well within your rights to stay for as long as feels good for you. I wouldn't make it a huge thing. I certainly wouldn't, you know, suggest that you turn it into a 3-day weekend. It's not really usually a thing parents are able to do anyway. So we don't have those pressures, you know, that it just, we met and then they never left. That I would avoid. But yeah, there are no hard and fast rules about intimacy. And so take them off the table for yourself, and don't beat yourself up about anything. Whether you did or didn't do something, you know, trust yourself. You can make those decisions for yourself. You're an adult, like, you've got this. You don't need advice around that. What can be tricky though, because even if it's not something that's necessarily going to go anywhere at all, you are sat with this person for an amount of time. So even if you've turned up and they're the wrong person completely, it's extremely rude to just turn around and walk away. You need to be polite to people in general in life. That goes without saying. And also, if you do like them, it can be a bit overwhelming, and nerves can come up that make conversation a little bit more challenging than it would be if you were like with a friend, or, you know, a potential new friend, another Frollo maybe. That would be easy, because you don't have those kind of anxious feelings that we all have until we get really, really used to dating. So how do you get the conversation flowing, and how do you stop it becoming super awkward? And if it does become super awkward, what to do, right? Like, these are things that are going to help us come across as confident, even if we're not feeling as confident as we would like, because yeah, it is just nerve-wracking. Kind of the best advice I have for this is to keep it light. You know, keep it to topics that are, and I don't mean be kind of ditzy and vacuous and not talk about your real self and your real interests. Passion's fine, but keep it quite light and playful. It's probably not the time, like you're not deciding whether you want to marry this person right now, it's probably not the time for like really deep dives into like past trauma or bringing up exes. And like, we are, like, I'm sure we're all guilty of this at some point, especially if you've just been through a breakup. I know I've done it, like, for sure, spent the first 3 or 4 months after a breakup going on dates and like bizarrely talking about my ex as if this was going to be a good idea and wasn't going to make me super anxious. It's time to kind of focus on the positives. You're just there, like, seeing whatever this person's presenting to you, and you want to show up in your best light, right? So keeping things kind of interesting but quite upbeat and playful. And yeah, not slagging anybody off. And I know that this again seems like it goes without saying, but you would be astonished the number of people that go on dates and suddenly have only negative things to say about everything. And I get it, like, there's been a pandemic, and I get it, life is really hard for everyone, and like the world is on fire, and politics, and you know, whatever it is, like, it's not exactly a kind of a brilliant time for absolutely everybody. And that can be doubly true if you've got a stressful home life for whatever reason. It's not the place to kind of show all of your dirty laundry all at once, partly because it's none of their business, right? Like, they don't know you. It also just kind of sets a negative tone. So like, putting the positives up front can be a really good way just to keep that conversation on a level that's kind of easy, because yeah, you don't want to be dealing with all your challenging stuff in this situation with like a perfect stranger, basically, or someone you've chatted to briefly. The kind of exception to that is it can be fun to play games. Like, if you do fancy each other, you can kind of set up little bantery games, where it's kind of like you and me against the other people eating dinner, or, you know, like those little kind of games that we play when we're kids at the back of the classroom can be really fun kind of things to try and do, but it's all in a very like upbeat, playful tone, rather than you know, deep and meaningful and dark. And if you are somebody with a big shadow side and dark stuff, that's cool. I mean, talk about it, but just not in a very gloomy and negative way. You know, you can go full goth without being negative. So yeah, not really the place for slagging other people off, not the place to bring up your ex and everything that's happened to you and what you're definitely not looking for. And yeah, I mean, there's different ways of framing it, but to say I'm looking for something serious is very different from saying no hookups. You know, those things are saying the same thing essentially, but one is positive and one is negative. So we're trying to keep it just as positive as possible. And ask purposeful, kind of meaningful questions. If there are things that you really want to know about this person, it could be, you know, do you like kids? Do you want kids in your life ever? You can do that in a playful, positive manner. And you'll get to where you kind of want to know. I don't mean kind of avoid the complexities of life and not ask the difficult questions, just try and frame them in a way that is upbeat. You still do want to be asking the questions that you want to know, right? Because there's no point you going on 8 months of dates with somebody who has no interest in children whatsoever, or they dislike them and they never want to have kids in their lives at all. So you need to get to those conversations. And the first date is a great place to kind of learn somebody's value system, what they're kind of vaguely looking for. I mean, I wouldn't set up a very firm shop, but, you know, saying, you know, at this stage in my life, I'm looking for something serious. How about you? Is much better than like, oh, I don't want any more fuck boys, fuck girls, or everyone's a narcissist kind of thing. You know, you know the type that I'm talking about. So try and ask purposeful, meaningful questions, but not in an interrogative way. You're trying not to make the other person feel like they're in an interview or that there is a right or wrong answer, even if there is, even if there is for you a very clear right, wrong to this question. You need to set up a situation where that person can answer honestly, because you will come across people who want to please you for whatever reason. You know, they want to tell you what you want to hear. And so you need to be able to make it a space, you know, a safe space that they can answer you truthfully. So that can really help. If you find that you're asking all the questions, then ask something really open and let them return it. If it's just sort of back and forth, yes, no, that can be very staccato and awkward and weird and can put us on edge. So purposeful, meaningful, kind of open-ended questions, as you would do with any other communication in your life. Flatter them. I know this can sound a bit trite, but there's no harm in flattering them. And even if it's not somebody that you want to pursue anything with, when we meet new people and they're flattering to us in some way, that's really nice to hear. You know, it's really always nice to hear something positive. So you can't really do this too much. And I know here in the UK, we're not great at this. We kind of have a culture of meet people in the pub and essentially insult them until, you know, like somehow you wind up being together for 5 years. But when you're going back out there and you want something a little bit more conscious, you can be flattering. And I think it's best to avoid this all being around appearance. But, you know, maybe they have a hobby that's really interesting. So say to them, oh my God, that's really interesting. I wish I did something like that. Or, you know, they've got a job you respect, or they've got a bigger purpose that you respect. I think there's absolutely never too much that you can say that's like, oh, I really respect that. Just make sure that it's sincere, right? I'm sure if you have an hour-long conversation with almost anybody, you can find something that is positive to say about them. And they'll go away from that experience feeling positive about themselves. And that's always nice, even if this isn't the one, this isn't somebody you want to pursue. We want to come across as polite, happy, you know, and respectful people. And that's going to give you the kind of the best outlook, because if you bring that energy in, you'll get that back. And it's much nicer to sort of sit through having a chat with somebody where it's nice and positive and you're getting lots of nice compliments as well. Stereotypically for the guys, yeah, avoid this all being about appearance. Like, I think, I don't speak for all women, but if somebody just comes and continually compliments me on physical things, that can feel a little vacuous, a little fake, and a little bit like you're maybe just trying to get me into bed. And it's a bit of a turn off. I'd like to hear that you, think that something I'm doing in my life is incredible. If you're dating another parent, you know, talk about your parenting values and be like, oh, that's really interesting. See where you differ, see where you're the same. And have a nice chat around that. That can be a great reason to date another parent, because you've got those things in common, but we all do it differently. Those are great things to do. But yeah, sincere, try not to make it as appearance based as we tend to. And yeah, don't complain. Don't complain about the service, don't complain about your ex, don't complain about, I don't know, whatever it is, universal credit, your boss, whatever's going on. Let's like leave it out of this short meeting with somebody whom we'd like to leave a positive impression on and would like to have a nice time with. So let's not do that. No phones. is another way to make sure that your conversation flows freely and is not kind of staccato, awkward, and strained. If you're constantly kind of somewhere else, that can be really challenging. And I know we're all kind of on our phones all the time at the moment. And this is why the babysitting thing, the childcare thing is so important, because you need to be able to carve out this, even if it's just half an hour for a coffee, where you are present. This is the only thing you're really investing in this person at this point. I'm going to be present for this meeting, however long it lasts. You have no idea how much stress you actually take off yourself by not looking at your phone for this time. It means that you can involve yourself. It means you can be really engaged with this person and seeing if there is anything there for you, which is your only job there, right? Like, your only reason for being there is not to be chosen by this person, though obviously we'd like to make a positive impression. You're only really there to see if this is somebody that you'd like to see again. And that's very difficult if you're kind of split in 2 or 3 different directions, or if you're telling someone how it's going. You can do that after. You know, obviously, if something scary happens, then bring your phone out. But like, I would have it in your bag, not right there on the table. And the last thing in terms of the conversation is you could try and throw in your absolute best, right? There's no harm in coming across as awesome. And I like to think about ways in which you are unique. So your unique kind of traits. You want to just be showing these off, alluding to them, glimpses of them. You know, this is the kind of art of seduction, which I'm sure we will cover on another day, but the kind of alluding to the fact that, okay, you're a parent, so you're responsible, but you're also really fun. So you could say something fun that you did, or you're incredibly smart, but you're also kind of playful and goofy. These kind of things, we all got them, ways in which we're slightly contradictory. And that makes us kind of appear unusual. And frankly, it makes us appear extremely unique. And when you come across as kind of unique, then you are difficult to find again. It's not really true. I mean, we all have these things, as I've said. But trying to work out yours and then just sort of flashing them, like kind of like a pack of cards that you're sort of just kind of going, right, I'm going to play this little bit just to show them this side of myself and see how they react. Because what you're doing there is allowing them to make an informed decision about you. If you're sat there worrying about them liking you or not, then you're not giving them a full in, right? You're trying to present a side of yourself and you're not giving them a chance to get to know you and really choose you for who you are. So you need to show little bits of yourself, bits that you like, and put them up front and see how they take it. And it doesn't matter if they don't like you. You have to pick bits that you like about you. And then they have a chance to get to know you a bit deeper. So yeah, if the conversation runs dry, they're not asking you that many questions, just tell them a nice anecdote that sort of shows you in various lights that you enjoy about yourself, because you're only in control of your side of this, not theirs. The fear of failure. I would like to talk a little bit about this. This is a long one, but yeah, you essentially can't fail at a date. And I know that it feels like you can sometimes, and we kind of get caught up in the like, oh God, I screwed that up. Or if you like somebody and they don't like you back, that can feel like a failure. If you've had a kind of checkered past romantically, you can feel like a failure. You know, there's lots of areas in which we can fear coming across as a failure when it comes to kind of dating and just romance in general. Essentially, you won't have a spark with everyone, and thank God, because imagine the drama if we all fancied everybody we ever went on a date with and they fancied us, and the whole world would be in chaos. So it's absolutely fine if somebody doesn't like you or you don't like them. you can learn and evaluate everything later. So if you come off one date and you're like, oh God, I shouldn't have said that, I just came across completely nuts at that point, or whatever it is, oh, that was a bit awkward of me. They're just great things to learn from, right? You can have a full decompress afterwards and learn from it and move on. Like any other skill, these are learnable things. These are not things that naturally come to all of us. I know they don't naturally come to me. And you can twist it into a learning experience, right? Like anything else. If it hasn't gone perfectly, think about that later. But essentially, it's great that not everybody fancies you and you're not going to fancy them. And rejection does happen to everybody. You have no idea what's going on with them. It can be something as daft as you wear the same cologne as their ex, you know, or you laugh like their mum, or whatever. Like, you have no idea what it is that has like put up a barrier for this person with you. And it can be something massive, you know, you're in a completely different stage of life to them and they're just looking for casual sex and you're looking for a life partner, or vice versa. And that means that you are incompatible. And that's great, because you know that. It's not that anyone's failed there. Both of those positions are completely fine. They're just not a match. And you see this all the time happening in, you know, online dating shows, and everyone's like, oh my God, they were awful. They wanted something different. But like, wanting something different from somebody else is not a failure. Like, that's just life. We all want different things all of the time. And really getting comfortable with what it is that you're looking for is a great place to start with that. And just going, well, okay, like, yeah, in a different world, if I was 21 and I could go traveling around the world with this person, I'd love to do that. But I'm not at that point in my life. And that's fine. It's not a failure. You know, if they're looking for someone to go backpacking in the Amazon, if you've got a 3-year-old, it's not for you, is it? It's not going to be the one. So that's not a failure. It's just looking for different things. As I've said before, you're not there to be chosen at all. It is not an interview for a job. It is not, it's not a picking situation whatsoever. I know that we live in kind of capitalism and consumerism, but you're not a product on a shelf, like, and nor are they. We're not just there sort of picking traits for people. We're trying to make real personal connection. And that's not possible if you're sitting there thinking of each other as a bunch of tick boxes, or if you're worried about getting picked. It's not about that. It's about mutual attraction and connection. And as I said, like, rejection happens to absolutely everybody. If you have a scarcity mindset, I'm sure people who have done work around other areas of kind of self-development have heard this term, but if you see the world that there's only a few people for me, then bringing that scarcity mindset to a date will mean that you put too much pressure on it, and you'll be so terrified of it not working out that, yeah, you'll either like try and get somebody to try and convince somebody to spend time with you when you're not really that interested into them. You're not even that into them anyway. Basically, there are so many people. There are so many of us who are parents who are considering dating. You know, a quarter of families have a single parent household. There are so many of us in every single demographic that you can think of, that you don't have to worry about not meeting somebody. That's not a thing. And if you bring that attitude of, oh my God, I'll never meet anybody, then like, you'll never meet anybody, because you'll be so preoccupied with that kind of scarcity mindset. And don't worry about what they like about you. Just ask yourself the question, what you like about them. Be so focused on what is it about them that I like or don't like, that it doesn't matter to you, basically, if they like you or not. You can deal with that later. If you think, right, what did I like about them? If they never want to see you again and it's just not a match for whatever reason, but they had a trait that you really admired and you really like, that's great. Like, you've learned something about your attraction, and you can go out there again and be like, where can I find this again? So if somebody's, I don't know, really sporty, and you were like, oh God, I did find that really attractive. There are loads of sporty people. If someone was funny, but like you didn't fancy them physically, you don't have to stick with somebody because they're funny, but you don't fancy them physically. Like, you can find someone you fancy who's also funny. This is the thing. People are infinitely diverse. So you will find a combination of things like attractive. And it's just about asking yourself, what was it that made me consider this even for a second? So if someone even said to you, I don't like kids at all, well, there must have been some reason that you were talking. Okay, so isolate that trait and look for it elsewhere in other people. It might be something that you want to develop in yourself. It might not even be something that you're looking for in a partner. It might just be something you want more of in your life. So it can be a really good place for evaluation. It's never a failure, basically. The worst dates ever are still not failures, because I don't know, worst case scenario, they become a funny anecdote, or you've learned something about yourself and why you've put yourself in touch with this person in the first place. Chemistry is mutual, or it isn't at all. This is a really big one that people get wrong all the time. Chemistry is between two people. You can have attraction to somebody who's not interested in you, but that's not chemistry. Chemistry is a mutual thing. So it's either there for both of you or it's not there. And trying to force that with somebody means that you're not present and you're not engaged in what's happening. If something was there for you and you were like, oh, we had a really good connection, and they're like, yeah, I didn't feel that, then you have got something to work on. And that's amazing, because when we learn what we need to work on, we can do that, and that makes our lives easier. But essentially, if the people are like, oh, I thought we had a great bond, and you're just sitting there kind of going, were you on the same date as me? Or like, was this the same conversation? That's when you need to wonder what it is that you think depth, connection, chemistry means, and why you thought this was present where it clearly wasn't, because it is a mutual dynamic, or it isn't there. So all these things, like, you just come away from these experiences going, I've learned loads, absolutely loads, whether or not it went well, and we wanted to see each other again. If you don't want to see someone again, let's start there, because it's easier. If you don't want to see someone again, tell them politely, but do tell them, because otherwise we get into those situations where we have people kind of haying at us for months on end because we never told them to stop. Basically, you have control over this area of your life. You have control over all areas of dating, but basically you need to let somebody know if you don't want to see them again, because that will let them know what they're working with, right? I think it's always great to follow up a date. If someone's taken you out with a thank you, that's just like kind of polite, and that's so lacking from so much of our dating etiquette at the moment, that people just aren't even polite to each other. So let's start there, always being polite. Thank you, I just didn't feel a spark, or thank you, but it's not really what I'm looking for right now, is fine. You don't need to say more or less than that. You don't have to give them a huge breakdown of why they're a crap person and you don't want to see them again, unless they were like incredibly rude to you, in which case you might want to say something. But they're not a bad person because you don't fancy them. So just a very quick thanks, but no thanks. But I would do that. I would follow up with that, and not leave them several days kind of excitedly hanging on, because we've been both sides of that. I'm sure all of us have been both sides of that. I would, however you feel about somebody, follow up with them within 12 to 24 hours max. If you did like them, I think that that's okay to put yourself out there. And I'm so over kind of gendered stereotypes about this. Again, like the sex, at any stage, first date, 10 months in, it actually has very little bearing on the stability of your relationship. And if you want to see them again and you're a woman, just say, thank you, I had a really nice time. I'd like to do it again sometime. That's so simple, right? You don't have to wait 3 days. And then if they're not interested, they can tell you because you've put it there. People aren't always as polite as we'd like them to be. So yeah, no answer is still an answer, but you've put where you are on that. And that's always something that you can respect about yourself. Okay. There's absolutely nothing wrong with just saying, I had a really nice time. Thank you. I'd like to do it again. It's also fine if they don't want to do that. And yeah, be really, really clear. Just be really clear. Don't attach yourself to the outcome. Again, it doesn't matter if they're not on the same page as you, you're just not on the same page. But communicate your side of things, I think, is my biggest advice for how to follow up. If you want to see them again, it's sometimes good to set an actual date, you know? So I'd really like to do that again. If you've talked about something you'd like to do on the date, then suggest that. If they've recommended a book, say maybe I'll read that book and then we could discuss it over a coffee or whatever. But it's sometimes nice to put something a bit solid and concrete quite soon after the date if you want to do it again, because otherwise you can just leave it on we should do it again sometime, and then it's been a month and you haven't, and then it's been 2 months and you haven't, and you're sort of vaguely texting, but nobody's got any clear plans, and it can just kind of drift off and fizzle out or just get a bit weird. So yeah, I wouldn't follow up with any nudes, no dick pics, please, unless someone's explicitly requested that. But generally just saying, hey, had a really nice time. I'd really like to do this with you. Are you free? And then select the date that you're free. It can be that simple. So yeah, does anyone have any questions? I know that was an awful lot to go through, but does anyone have any like specific questions? There's a couple in the chat. Okay, it's everyone saying they're good. Yeah, if you have anything you want to say, either unmute yourself or you can ask me in the chat and I will try and answer your specific kind of date confidence questions.
Yeah, I was, oh, sorry, the cat's jumping off my lap. Now I can sit upright again. I just had a question. You did touch on it as well. So I don't drink.
Okay.
I might drink again one day, but at the moment I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the time people are like, oh, let's go for a drink. And it's kind of an evening thing. And I know the expectation's never to drink, and I would if I didn't feel comfortable to. But, you know, what else? I mean, you said breakfast, but what else? Because you don't want to put too much pressure on it. So like, you don't want to organize a whole thing. Right. But what other ideas, like apart from breakfast, anything around food, breakfast, lunch, coffee, dinner?
Yeah,
like,
I
mean, that's kind of all I can think of. And I'm like, sometimes it's a bit boring. Like, you want to do something different, but not pressured.
Right. No, I totally understand. Obviously I don't drink at the moment either, but for other reasons. Yeah, if you don't want to go for somewhere where there's also going to be drunk people, because if you don't drink, you know, you don't necessarily want to be in the pub. Things like walks are great. If both of you have pets, or if one of you has a pet. Things like picnics are awesome. Activities can be good too. You know, actually lots of the best dates don't involve alcohol at all. And on the kind of the thing of being present, you know, getting completely drunk doesn't allow you to do that anyway. So yeah, crazy golf, whatever kind of little activities. If it's an evening thing, I would avoid movies because you're kind of unable to talk. But yeah, walks in safe public places are always great. Any sporting stuff? What are your kind of hobbies? What do you do with yourself?
Well, like in a normal world, things are a bit crazy for me at the moment, but yeah, walks, picnics all sound good. I love horse riding, like taekwondo, anything vaguely adrenaline based, so go-karting would be fun, zorbing maybe, stuff like that. But I know obviously for a first date you don't want to be doing anything
too expensive,
too crazy. Yeah,
Yeah, so something around that. I mean, you know, go and watch a boxing match or something, or I don't know,
Awesome.
play a sport. Rock climbing's great if people are into like active dates. I've had some like clients who've had amazing rock climbing dates. Hikes, things, if you are a very active person, other food and drinky things are usually good because that gives you a sort of focal point. So you can always go kind of like cheese tasting or something small. But yeah, like there is really nothing wrong with a sort of stereotypical coffee, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be bigger than that for a first date. You can then start thinking, oh, let's do other trampolining dates, but it can be
air hop.
You know, those things are fine.
I love that. I love air hop. It's brilliant.
Someone suggested ghetto golf. So
what even is that? What's ghetto golf?
I mean, we should all check it out. Ghetto golf sounds fun.
Oh, cool. So yeah, that was my question. I think there was another question in the chat, so I'll mute myself now.
Okay, yeah, there's one that's just come up that says, should you be honest if someone asks you if you're going on dates with others? I've got a few dates lined up with different people. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. For sure, be honest, because one, you don't want somebody thinking that like all your attention's on them and that they've got you exclusively, because that can be an assumption that people say. Two, it makes you seem kind of desirable and in demand, which is never a bad thing. And yeah, I think always be honest about this. I can't think of a situation where I wouldn't suggest that you should be honest about that. I think bringing it up in a very kind of like intense and sincere way might be the wrong strategy, but I think we kind of like assume, I hope we assume in 2021 that if we're going on a first date with somebody that it's probably not exclusive, or there should be no expectation of exclusivity. Yeah, I don't think you need to bring up those dates. Again, with the kind of no negging thing, don't be like, oh, I went on a really shitty date last week and like, thank God you're better, because again, that's not putting you in the most positive light. But yeah, completely. You might want to change that when you start getting intimate with some of these people. Again, totally fine if you're sleeping with 50 people at once, as far as I'm concerned, but that might not be okay for the other person. And some people have other expectations that if it has got intimate, that you are a bit more exclusive. So yeah, again, honesty is your best policy on that, but in a sort of chill, upbeat manner rather than an intense, yeah, you're not my only date kind of thing. Is not the way I'd go. But yeah, good. Have lots of dates lined up if you can. We don't all have time for that. We don't all have inclination for that. So don't put pressure on that. But if you are dating and you've got lots of interest and lots of people coming at you and you want to meet them all, go meet them all and be happy and be honest. Is that helpful? So yeah, if anyone has any other questions, just pop them now. And if not, we will call it an evening because it is late for the pregnant amongst us. Okay. Well, I hope that was helpful. I hope that you got some tips to take away from that. It's a big topic, and I'm going to be around, as I said, quite a lot more to answer your specific questions, and I'm kind of doing some more stuff on Instagram. So if you have any other questions, pop them on the app or on Instagram somewhere, and I will find them. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, lovely to see you, and I will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.